The Vietnam War was a long and brutal conflict that took place from 1955 to 1975, between the Communist government of North Vietnam and the government of South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States and its allies. This war has had a profound impact on the history of both Vietnam and the United States, and its effects are still being felt today. The roots of the Vietnam War can be traced back to the end of World War II, when Vietnam was still a colony of France. In 1945, Ho Chi Minh, a Vietnamese nationalist and communist, declared the independence of Vietnam and formed the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. However, the French refused to recognize this new state and returned to Vietnam, sparking a war for independence that lasted from 1946 to 1954. The French were ultimately defeated at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, and they withdrew from Vietnam. However, the country was divided into two separate states, North Vietnam and South Vietnam, with a demilitarized zone separating them. The United States became involved in Vietnam in the early 1960s, during the administration of President John F. Kennedy. At the time, the United States was concerned about the spread of communism and believed that if South Vietnam fell to the communists, other countries in Southeast Asia would follow. The United States began to send military advisors and supplies to South Vietnam, but it was not until after the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964 that the United States began a full-scale military intervention. The Vietnam War was a brutal and bloody conflict that lasted for over a decade. The United States and its allies used a variety of tactics, including airstrikes, ground offensives, and the use of chemical weapons such as Agent Orange. The North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, who were communist guerrilla fighters operating in South Vietnam, employed tactics such as ambushes, booby traps, and hit-and-run attacks. The war was deeply unpopular in the United States, and there were large-scale protests and demonstrations against the war throughout the country. Many Americans felt that the war was unjust and that the United States had no business intervening in Vietnam's internal affairs. The war also had a significant impact on the military, as soldiers returning from Vietnam faced discrimination and hostility from the PE. In 1973, a peace agreement was signed between the United States and North Vietnam, and the United States began to withdraw its troops. However, fighting continued between North and South Vietnam, and in 1975, North Vietnam launched a major offensive that led to the fall of Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam. The war officially ended on April 30, 1975, when North Vietnamese troops entered Saigon and the government of South Vietnam surrendered. The Vietnam War had a profound impact on both Vietnam and the United States. In Vietnam, the war caused significant destruction and loss of life, and it took many years for the country to rebuild. In the United States, the war led to a loss of confidence in government and a questioning of American values and ideals. It also had a lasting impact on the military, as the United States learned many hard lessons about the dangers of fighting a war in a foreign country with a hostile population. Today, the Vietnam War is remembered as one of the most significant events of the 20th century, and its legacy is still being felt in both Vietnam and the United States. The war serves as a reminder of the cost of conflict and the importance of diplomacy and peacekeeping efforts. It is also a reminder of the bravery and sacrifice of the men and women who served in Vietnam, and the importance of honoring their memory and their service.